I was trying to think about this way because the only comparison I can think of in the history of Dynamite where they started off with this lengthy promo segment, I remember one of the early Dynamites when the Inner Circle first formed and they came out for a big promo segment, but that might not have even kicked off the show. I cannot remember. But this has to be the first time they have ever started with like a 20-minute talking segment.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I mean, I feel like it's not, that unusual that we might have seen something like this, but, I'm terrible with my recall with some of this stuff.
Not for Dynamite. I mean, this is, I would have to imagine.
How about when Punk debuted?
When Punk came on Rampage, that would have been the exception to the rule, yes. So maybe Punk in Chicago breaks the AEW rules.
Yeah, and the common denominator is CM Punk. This was a segment that I did not expect to take place on this show. It was not something they promoted. They promoted QT Marshall versus CM Punk. And that's what I think, you and I were debating on our post-news update today on youtube.com/postwrestling. Subscribe, everybody. We're doing those live, by the way, everybody, starting at 1 o'clock every day. So catch us there live. And if you're a patron, you get that in audio form. Some plugs out of the way there. But you and I were debating, what they would start the show off with tonight. And I think we had agreed Punk versus Cabana was probably our guess. Simply because...
No. We were not guessing Punk versus Cabana would start the show.
Never mind. That's maybe 5 years down the line, perhaps. Danielson versus Cabana. Because, it felt like the biggest thing on this show. Coming out of this show...
You couldn't have ended with this, so I understood why you started with this. Nor do I think that Punk QT match would have really fit in the main event, like watching it. It was just the idea of the matches. I was not looking at that 8-man to close the show, but it probably made as much sense as anything.
Point is, Cabana versus Danielson was the biggest thing on paper heading into Dynamite.
Right.
But on their rundown and in their plans, they clearly had something much bigger to start the show off with, and it was a promo battle between MJF and CM Punk, which I think is as valuable as the match. I would have paid pay-per-view money to see tonight's showdown.
Punk and MJF talk.
Yeah.
What a concept.
It draws.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess Punk second best at something else this week as well.
That is right. As John alluded to, Volume 3 of Talk released at postwrestlingcafe.com. You just throw them to me, and I'll be the sellout, John.
Yeah, a lot of compliments about me and Wei speaking together in person, making eye contact. I say great reaction because I think I only hear from the people that enjoy things. I think Wei probably gets the DMs about, all right, what's up with this guy? What is it about this guy?
I'll it's confidential. So yeah, if you have your complaints about John Pollock, send them to me. But no, thank you for all the kind words, of course. And as revealed on that show, Black Friday sale coming up at store.postwrestling.com. See, I got to fit another one in there. On Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 20% off all items at store.postwrestling.com with the promo code.
I can't remember what we settled on.
Eggs.
Okay. Plural. Eggs.
That is correct. Yes, starting Friday.
Yes. So go to the store and put all your eggs into one basket and check out with our Black Friday sale. That is good until when, Way?
Monday.
Okay.
Monday evening, the end of Raw.
Yeah, where you could get a post-wrestling hat, and if you buy a post-wrestling hat, you're pretty much guaranteed front row ringside seats facing the hard cam. So that's what that hat is going to open the door to you ticket-wise.
That, and also if you happen to be working at Pro Wrestling Tees and if your name happens to be Scrump. So yes, that is right. Thank you for the representation, Scrump. And also Jake from the Windy City showing up in some post gear tonight.
Well, there's a massive reaction for Punk coming out, and he is cut off by MJF. And he walks out, and the crowd is immediately chanting asshole. And this is mixed with Punk chants as they stand across the ring. This is like two gunslingers about to go at it as they stare their prey from across the ring. And MJF starts out referring to him as Punky Brewster. and said that you hurt my feelings when you didn't shake my hand last week. The boos are enormous here. And said it was almost as bad as when you took your ball and went home like a little bitch. He brings up the pipe bomb, calling it the best moment, but every MJF moment is the best MJF moment. I'm not just a one-trick pony. I respect you, Punk. I respect that you're straight edge, even though you look like a meth addict. And if I had your face, I'd have to down 8 shots of whiskey just to look at myself in the mirror. And he brings up Punk's interviews, these famous press interviews that Punk did during the beginning stages of AEW, and the names that he listed off that he wanted to work with, never mentioning MJF.
They're getting a whole lot of mileage out of these early Punk interviews.
This was the best media tour AEW ever set one of their talents on for promo material. And said that you never named me because you didn't want any. Punk, you on the microphone, it's like a big fish in a small pond, but now you're a minnow. And I'm about to finish you verbally faster than your UFC career, which got a big zing. But when you actually think about it, from the moment his signing was announced to his last fight, it was actually a very long time that he ended up being in the UFC. It was years.
Sure. Okay, fine.
It was 2 fights spread out over lots of training, injuries, first fight, big gap, second fight, and then just kind of no one knew what his future was going to be. So it's not like it was like he was there for like one fight for a cup of coffee. I mean, he was actually there for a long time. It just was spread out and very slow.
I mean, in terms of in-ring content, I think we saw less of CM Punk in the octagon than we did of the Queen's Crown. You could fit.
No, that's Punk. You know what? It might be true because he got finished in the first round with Mickey Gall, but he went the full 3 with Mike Jackson in that pretty terrible fight in Chicago.
All right. Okay,
so he did get a full 15 in for one of them. And the UFC career line gets a big reaction. They cut to Scrump for his reaction, and he was looking fairly stoic here. And MJF says, "You might drop bombs, but I drop nukes." And Punk goes and he grabs a microphone. He is so disappointed in MJF, thanks him for introducing him, because up until last week, I didn't know your name was Maxwell. All this time, I thought it stood for my jealous fan. He never brought his name up by design to feed MJF's ego. I'm already in your head because you have a poster of me on your wall. Last week, I shut up the great MJF without even saying a word, and you had 7 days to think about what you would come at me with, and you went with the lowest hanging fruit, when all you are is a less famous Miz.
So when this thing started, I mean, it was very much, I think, MJF coming out with some very strong material. You know, everybody knows the sore spot that Punk has with him forever now, being that UFC career. And Punk had to come back, I would say, pretty hard. You know, harder than I think he has for a lot of people in his earlier promos that we've seen in AEW. And it wasn't, like, for the most part of Punk's response, I was like, yeah, I think I got MJF in this round. And then he hit him with the Miz line, which just turned this whole thing around. And after that line, now we have a fight. You know, this is the moment in the match where it's like one person kind of dominates, and then the other person gets like a last minute knockdown in the round, and now we have a fight. And I think Punk took this one simply with that line.
MJF then responds, and the crowd is chanting Miz. This was just this was amazing. And he says that nostalgia is a drug that causes us to misconstrue our memories, and admits, I was a fan of you, Punk. You were the best, or so I thought. But you struggled to beat the easiest of competition here, or to say anything of intrigue. Your breath smells like shit from kissing so much ass. And then he went into this robotic impression of Punk to indicate how soft he's gone.
How generic his promos have been.
Yes. Punk's hair is going gray, and based on your eyes, if anyone needs to go to sleep, it's you. You've become PG, Punk. What happened to the guy I grew up on? You might as well be preaching hustle, loyalty, and respect. And that got a big reaction as well.
All the WWE references got big reactions from this crowd.
but I can see you, and I can also see through you. You only came here for a boatload of money after staying home for 7 years, writing comics that people didn't read, and being in movies no one watched. Or were you at home all this time because you were scared that you couldn't hang? People idolized you because they felt that you were held down. Now you have the opportunity to prove everybody right, but can you? And he knows that Punk envies MJF. He's every promoter's dream and runs down Punk's upbringing and insults Chicago. Deep down, Punk has always been second best. Whether it be Cena, Hunter, he was not up to snuff, and it's no different here. I'm better than you, and you know it. And that was MJF's ending speech here before Punk would get his closing argument.
He was great. He definitely escalated from his attack in the first round. This time he was breaking Punk down very methodically. It took a while for him to get there. He definitely had more time to lay down his attack. But
I'll say this on that point, Wade. Like, there was a point in this where, I mean, it was captivating, and I think that overrides all of it. But it was some of that we get sometimes that we complain about in WWE, that it's like the guy is just eating all this for so long, just standing there. But this was almost like this almost was laid out like a rap battle, where it's like, you're going to have your turn,
exactly like,
and I'm going to take your, and then it's going to be my turn.
Yeah. I mean, before there were rap battles, there were pro wrestling promo battles. If anything, rap battles are modeled after professional wrestling. This is what pro wrestling is supposed to be. You go, I go. You go, I go. And it keeps escalating until you want to see these two punch each other in the face. But MJF, round two, I thought he told a great story. He questioned the confidence of one of the most confident dudes in the history of this industry. And I thought he had some great ammunition. You've been away for 7 years. You had plenty of things to complain about. You had a lot of strength when you had, somebody to rebel against. But now you have the opportunity to prove that you are number one. And can you actually do it? It was great. It was far more cerebral than first round.
So Punk says there is some truth in that. I was a bit scared coming back after 7 years. I didn't know if people would remember or care about me, or even if I still had it. But I'm not scared any longer. I was selling out Madison Square Garden when you were marking out for Rosie O'Donnell. You made the New York Times for your segment with Jericho. I'm going to put you back into the New York Times in the obituaries. You've enrolled in a college your parents can't afford, and you can't back up your words without Wardlow, Sean Spears, and FTR. I came to AEW for the heart and soul of this company, Darby Allin, and that eats you up. You talk about being the strongest of the four pillars when you don't even realize you've been replaced by Britt Baker. The reason they call Chicago the second city is because when it burned down, we just rebuilt ourselves. So I'm fine wearing number 2. And the only way you'll ever be number 1 is if Tony Khan has a daughter that you marry and threatens to punch his needle dick right here in Chicago.
An unbelievable segment. This was one of the best promo segments of the year, one of the best segments of TV this year, period. We just saw like
in terms of match setup way, like Punk maybe 1-2 this year with this and the Kingston segment. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to like break down a promo segment, the easy question at the end is, do you want to see the match and did the segment heighten it? This times 10. This 100%. Was tremendous.
100%. This is now the hottest feud in AEW, and that means it's probably the hottest feud in the wrestling industry right now. We just saw that the two best promo guys in the industry go toe-to-toe in a 20-minute unedited war on live television, and it was fucking spectacular. It lived up to every expectation. It exceeded expectations.
This was 20 minutes that we just recapped.
Yeah, I know. And it like, but at the end of it, like, I truly do question, like, you know, kayfabe aside, I do question, is CM Punk still the best? Is he still the best on the microphone this far removed? Does he still have, like, you know, the capability to go head to head with somebody as sharp, as like well oiled, I suppose, as like an MJF? And this absolutely proved that. Yes, he did. Like this was like, almost like a cliche. This was like, that unstoppable young prospect rising up the ranks. And then here comes the industry veteran coming back, signed a new contract, and the promoter wants to have the young prospect beat the veteran. But it's the veteran standing his ground, telling him, "You're very good, but I'm still the best." Round 2, Punk came back with like a ton of great fire. I mean, what I loved about, especially like, the better part of like this segment was like they didn't have to go work shoot at all. Like they dug deep, but they dug deep into the fictional character history of both men.
Let's pull up my quarter hours, Max.
Like at this point, that is so easy. The artistry is when you can stay within character to poke holes at the story. MJF targeted Punk's inner self-confidence, called him number 2, and the way Punk deflected the number 2 line, I thought was perfection. Like it makes me wonder how much these two orchestrated together, and who cares? Like, yeah, like you're creating great art, you're scripting great art. Whether or not they did, I don't know.
You're both working in concert together here, but I mean, in this setting, it's not an idea, like we know for a fact they are not sitting down and writing out any of this stuff. And it would be really interesting to know like what were kind of the bullet points each knew going in there, and how much was, the line about being number 2, was that something that was just in the moment, tying it into Chicago being the second city. I thought that was brilliant, like way to play off of that line. Like
it is brilliant either way, whether it was preconceived with the both of them together in a room, writing it down, whatever, or if it was improvised. Either way, it
only matters if it gets over. Like that's it. That's the whole point of pro wrestling, is does it get over?
And then like Punk digging to MJF's inability to win without cheating. He didn't need a ring to beat Darby Allin. But my favorite line from Punk in this entire promo was calling Britt Baker the 4th pillar replacement for MJF. That was my favorite. It was such a great dig because it brings up something that's actually quite profound. Why hasn't Britt Baker been named, as one of these founding pillars of AEW? Because she absolutely deserves to be.
Well, she'll probably be named it now after this segment. And again, it ties back to that first Punk segment where he brought up Britt Baker. That was like the first thing out of his mouth when he walked into AEW.
Puts Baker over huge, puts Darby Allin over huge at the same time. And then like even throwing in a Needle Dick nickname in there, perfectly setting up the chant. Like this was 2 grandmasters battling beat for beat. It was beautiful art. It was a great segment.
The question is, how long can you hold this match off for?
I was talking about it with some of the people in the chat room before we started here, but I mean, we do have the Wardlow match. We can even go to a Spears match, and any number of people for the Pinnacle. I think this has enough legs that you could delay it to probably a January show, one of the big shows in January. I mean, Long Island is a big show. The TBS debut is another big one. Battle for the Belts doesn't necessarily need this. I mean, there's no championship on the line, so probably I would say one of those. Revolution feels like it's too far away.
That's really long. If you're looking at the end of February, I just like, this was the money segment. This was like the go home segment almost. I don't know how much more you can build upon this, or that it needs building on top of it. So that will be interesting, the timing of when they pull the trigger on this match. And you're right, they do have the bodies you can throw at Punk to prolong the match. I would say like Long Island, like geographically that makes sense with MJF, but that's in 2 weeks. That seems very close.
I think that would be a perfect spot for their second promo battle. I mean, I don't know how you talk.
This will be like it'll be like the federal election. They're going to do like debates. They'll do like 3 debates. Next, It'll be a town hall meeting.
That's right. Yeah, Punk had hometown advantage today. You give MJF hometown advantage the next time. But that'll be interesting to see what the crowd reaction will be like, because I feel like they'll be very pro-Punk even there.
So this segment, as I mentioned, like it went 20 minutes or so, and then we come back, and QT Marshall is there in the ring, and we just go right into it. Nick Comoroto.
I have never seen a crowd so deflated after, like for the actual match after a talking segment. And that's not to say this match was bad. It was just because the prior thing was so good, Like, it was amazing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, like, the Thanksgiving Eve Dynamite. It's been a tough week for them to draw in the last 2 years. And they started off, I think, as strong as you could with Punk in Chicago. And then if you had tuned in at the beginning, which sometimes that's the big surge is at the beginning, and then you get an MJF segment, I think you're holding all those people for 20 plus minutes and maybe a little longer, because Punk's matches do very well when he's put on free TV.
Mm-hmm.